Yeah, good morning everyone. Today, in the continuation of the last class, we have seen Attico-Unroll type of CSOM in the last class, and with the continuation with that, now we can see what are the complications, various complications, how a complication happens, and uh, along with that, we can see the most common complication. Right. I am Dr. Azmat, Department of ENT. Right. The infection spreads beyond the mucoperiosteal lining of the middle ear cleft to involve the bone and neighboring structures like facial nerve, dural venous sinuses, meninges, brain tissue, and extratemporal soft tissue. This is the definition for complication. For example, in CSOM, generally the middle ear cleft is involved. Okay, but in a complication, the infection goes beyond the cleft. That is like the surrounding bone and surrounding structures like facial nerve and venous sinuses, the meninges, brain tissue, and extratemporal tissues like the muscles like sternocleidomastoid and digastric. Generally, the mortality is high due to complications, and though there is a overall decrease in the incidence of complications because of a very good antibiotics and early recognition of the disease. Okay, even though in spite of them also, still we can see complications in the routine OPD. Yeah, what is the classification? How you classify the complication? It is mainly two types, that is intratemporal complications and intracranial complications. Intratemporal complications, they confine to temporal bone only, and the intracranial cranial, the name itself suggests it spreads to cranial cavity. Okay, this is the main classification. We have four important complications in intratemporal. Okay, that is, first one, the most common is mastitis. The second common is petrositis and facial nerve paralysis and labyrinthitis. The first and foremost is mastitis, that is more common out of any complication. And what about intracranial complications? Those are extradural abscess, subdural abscess, brain abscess, brain parenchymal abscess, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis or lateral venous sinus thrombophlebitis, otitic hydrocephalus, and the most important one is meningitis, out of which meningitis is the most common intracranial complication. This is a very important MCQ. They usually generally ask for in pre-PG entrance exam. Overall intracranial and intratemporal complications, the most common is mastitis, but whereas in a case of intracranial, the most common complication is meningitis. And if you see a case of brain abscess, okay, generally you have to look the ear for any oral pathology. Okay, around 40 to 45% of the brain abscess cases or intracranial abscess cases, they originate from the ear. Okay, so factors, what factors that influence the development of complications? The first one is virulence of the organism, high virulence of the organism. Though we have a very good antibiotic, still the virulence is there, like development of the bacteria develops a biofilm which is resistant to antibiotics. Okay, and some bacteria, they produce toxins, okay, autolysin and pneumolysin toxins by Streptococcus pneumoniae. Okay, and few bacteria, they are resistant to beta lactam antibiotics like Haemophilus influenza. They produce beta lactamases. Okay, right. And then host immunity, a decreased host immunity, where the body if cannot fight with the organism, you will get a complication, like where you cannot fight a patient with a HIV infection, uncontrolled diabetes, a renal transplant patient who is receiving a immunosuppressive drugs, and cancer patients who is on chemotherapy. Generally they can't fight. Okay, their white blood cells, they are not up to the mark. And low socio-economic group, like several factors like overcrowding, poor health education, and unhygienic conditions, lack of personal hygiene, and generally they present very late with the complications. Okay, due to they don't have a proper access to healthcare. Right. The next one is age. Age always a factor. Like in early days, I mean first decade of life, and in late stages, later elderly patients, obviously you have less immune. And preformed pathways, like infection can easily travel the middle ear cleft via the preformed pathways, like adhesions bony canal on over the facial nerve. And if you do a previous ear surgery where you damage the tegmen, fracture of the temporal bones, and a surgical stapedectomy, and a disease induced perilymphatic fistula, or a congenital enlarged aqueduct of vestibule. Okay, these are all congenital and acquired traumatic, all factors. Preformed pathways, the infection spreads to the various places. And finally, and most important thing is cholesteatoma, as it is osteitis. It has osteitis and granulation tissues where they have several enzymes to destroy the bone. So they destroy the bone and they spread the infection. Okay. And roots of access. First one is direct bone access, where in acute and chronic diseases there is some process called hyperemic decalcification. Means the disease, they decalcify the bone. Okay, and there is a erosion of the bones, like you can see a jugular bulb and dural plate erosions, fallopian canal erosion, and surgical trauma. Okay, surgical trauma where you can have a bony defects. And normal anatomical pathways like wall window, round window. Okay, and fenestrations, various fenestrations. And normally you have a aqueducts. Okay, right, these are all the cause travel of the infections. Along with these, infection can travel along the internal acoustic meatus. Okay, and you can be having a congenital dehiscence like bony facial canal wall. Okay, and one more important thing is hematogenous spread, like venous thrombophlebitis, where veins of Haversian canals are connected to the dural venous sinuses. Okay, and they connect to superficial veins of the brain. So due to this venous thrombophlebitis, easily the infection may go to cranial cavity. Okay, and again the infected thrombus, it plays a important role. And finally you have a periarterial spread. Okay, along the arteries the infection may spread. Right, see in this picture, the first one is CT. Can you see a bony dehiscence in the arrow mark? Like that is high jugular bulb. Okay, and the bone between the ear cavity and jugular bulb, jugular venous sinuses, there is a defect in the anatomical defect. And second one, you have the blue color. The blue one is venous sinus, venous sinus, where you have a bony defect. Okay, and the third endoscopic picture, where there is no bone, no bony cover over the, here the bone, there is no bone over the facial nerve. Can you see below the, near the stapes? And in the final CT there is a tegmen impedance. What is tegmen? Tegmen is the bone between the cranial cavity and ear. So there is a loss of tegmen, so easily infection may spread to cranial cavity. Right. This is very important diagram. These are all intracranial and intratemporal complications. How a infection spreads. Like in one diagram, he shows all the complications. Like here the cholesterol crystals they spread to lateral venous sinus thrombophlebitis and extradural abscess, cerebellar abscess, okay, brain parenchymal abscess, and facial nerve paralysis. See here the preformed pathways and direct erosion of the tegmen, all this in this diagram. You can see how a venous sinuses they connect from cranial cavity to ear. So you have a special few other complications like extracranial, extratemporal complications. I'll explain you later on this. These are Bezold abscess. What is Bezold abscess? I'll explain. Subperiosteal, not sub, it is subperiosteal abscess, zygomatic abscess, and digastric abscess. Okay, and this is we discussed already. What is mastoiditis? First complication. This is the most common complication. That is acute mastoiditis. What is mastoiditis? Generally, in CSOM, the infection spreads to all the middle ear cleft. But in this, the infection spreads from the mucosal lining of the mastoid air cells to involve bony walls of the mastoid air cell system. So it is again two types, that is acute coalescent mastoiditis, and second one is masked mastoiditis. So what is first acute coalescent mastoiditis? Why it happens? Okay, by definition it is infection or inflammation of the mucosal lining of the antrum mastoid air cells, along with there is a bony involvement of the bony walls of the mastoid air cells. Why it happens? Etiology is follow a acute CSOM, acute attack of the CSOM case, high virulence, low host resistance, poor nutrition, comorbid conditions in a children, and the culprit is beta hemolytic streptococci. Most of the cases you will have beta hemolytic streptococci. And when it comes to pathophysiology, how it happens? Okay, first there are two important pathological features. One is production of a pus under tension. The second one is hyperemic decalcification and osteoclastic resorption of the bony walls. All the middle ear cleft along with mastoid air cells, attic, antrum, everything is filled with pus. Okay, and it is a closed cavity, right? Middle ear and mastoid is a closed cavity. So there will be, due to high virulence, there will be excessive production of pus. So all this pus collected in the closed cavity, so the pus is in under tension. And the second one is hyperemic decalcification due to inflammatory process of the mucosal air, mucoperiosteal lining, and there is a hyperemia and engorged mucosa. The mucosa is engorged. Okay, and that's why there is a dissolution of the calcium from the bony walls. So it is called as hyperemic decalcification. And again at the same time there is a activation of the osteoclast, which causes resorption of the bone. With these two, there is a destruction of all the bony walls, and there is a coalescence, means all the air cells they dissolve, and there is a formation of this single large pus collected cavity, that is also called as empyema of the mastoid. There is only one cavity which is everything irregular cavity filled with pus. Okay, and sometimes if you don't treat, the pus may break through the mastoid cortex into the subperiosteum, means the pus may travel to below the skin, okay, under the skin, and subperiosteal region. Sometimes it may leads to, it bursts to outside also, and it causes formation of the fistula. How it presents, what are the clinical features? Okay, and these are all clinical features. They are all similar to acute suppurative otitis media and acute attack of CSOM. And first and foremost is pain behind the ear. Okay, in this mastoid case, there is a persistent pain and increased intensity. Okay, right? And the second most thing is fever. You have a persistent or intermittent high grade fever. Okay, and the third one is, in mastoiditis you have a discharge which is profused purulent mucoid discharge. Obviously it comes from middle ear, so it is mucoid or mucopurulent. Okay, any ear discharge which is more than 3 weeks continuously, in spite of medicines also, if it is continue beyond the 3 weeks, you should suspect of a mastoiditis. Okay, this is very important point. Okay, these are all clinical features, how they present. And when it comes to signs, the first and foremost is a mastoid tenderness. It is very, very important sign. You can elicit with the fingers the mastoid tenderness over the mastoid process tip and root of zygoma. Okay, and the most commonly you can see tenderness over the suprameatal triangle, and the second one is ear discharge. You can see a mucopurulent ear discharge along with this mastoid reservoir sign. Means if you clean the ear discharge, again you will have a ear discharge. Why? It is the mastoid, it has full of pus, so it acts as a reservoir. If you clean also, again you will be having pus. If you keep on clear also, the ear canal filled with pus, so that is called as mastoid reservoir sign. And there is one more important sign, that is sagging of the posterior meatal wall. Okay, it is generally due to periostitis of the bony part. Okay, bony wall. Okay, or sometimes it is due to the bone between the antrum and posterior superior canal wall. So there is a inflammation between the wall between these two. That's why there is a sagging of the posterior superior meatal wall. And third one is, most important thing is, there is a perforation. Okay, obviously you will have a perforation from where you have ear discharge. The fourth one is lighthouse sign. Lighthouse sign means if you put your light, okay, you can see, you know, the light reflects over you, and the patient will be having, see how the ear is present. Can you see there is a swelling behind the mastoid? Okay, the ironed out field. Okay, and sometimes this pus may burst out from the posterior aspect of the ear, and it may cause a fistula. Okay, and the patient presents with obviously hearing loss due to conductive component, and generally the patient might be having a ill toxic low grade fever. Sometimes patient might be having a high grade fever also. Okay, right, these are the signs where he can present. This is very important, you know, differential diagnosis of the mastoiditis. Very usually, very often they ask. The first one is furunculosis of the external auditory canal. Second one is suppuration of the mastoid lymph nodes. The third one is infected sebaceous cyst. In suppuration of the mastoid lymph nodes, the mastoid lymph nodes may swollen, may infected due to scalp infection. Okay, and sometimes it leads to abscess formation. In this case, you should look for the ear. You won't find any features of otitis media. Okay, right, and generally these abscess is generally superficial, only lymph node, no? And next one is furunculosis. How you differentiate between the furunculosis and mastoiditis? This is very, very important, frequently asking question. The first one is, in a case of furunculosis, there won't be any symptom and signs of otitis media. Like, you know, there won't be any perforation, there won't be any ear discharge. Second one is, in a case of otitis, I mean in a case of furunclosis, you will be having very painful movement of the pinna. You can be having a tragal tenderness also. Okay, right. And the swelling in the external artery canal, that is confined to only cartilaginous part in furunclosis. Okay, no bony wall is involved. And the fourth important point is, in furunclosis the discharge never ever mucoid. Mucus component is gained only if the middle ear is involved, that is classical in mastoid. Okay, not for furunclosis. And if you have furunclosis, you will be having enlargement of the preauricular lymph nodes, and conductive deafness usually very low, sometimes no conductive hearing loss. Okay, and if you examine the tympanic membrane in furunclosis means disease of external artery canal, right? There is an absolute normal tympanic membrane, whereas you can elicit signs in the mastoiditis. Okay, and if you take a X-ray of the mastoids, there is a normal mastoid air cells. In case of furunclosis, you have clouding of the mastoid air cells in a case of mastoiditis. Okay, these three are very important differential diagnosis. Generally they use the infected sebaceous cyst. Also you don't have any ear signs, only it is superficial. Okay, and what are the investigations? How you proceed for the diagnosis? First one is you should take a blood count serology. It shows polymorphonuclear leukocytosis. Okay, second one is, you can take the help of ESR also, which is elevated, and you should take the mastoid X-ray. The classical feature of mastoiditis X-ray finding is, it is clouding of the mastoid air cells. The word should be, you should written clouding. Okay, and you can take the pus for culture and sensitivity, and CT mastoid. In this CT scan you can see all the air cells are destroyed, filled with pus in the right side ear. You can compare with the other side. Okay, treatment options. How you proceed for the mastoiditis? First, hospitalization of the patient, and second one is antibiotics. Okay, which are specific for organism. Okay, and the third one is meringotomy. How a meringotomy helpful? I told the pus is formed under the tension, so you relieve the pus by doing a meringotomy. Okay, and in early cases where if the patient is responding to antibiotics, not required. If the pain is severe and there is a persistent fever in spite of antibiotics, or if you have a severe pain, then you do a meringotomy and relieve the pus. And fourth one is cortical mastoidectomy, also called as Schwartz mastoidectomy. It is indicated for periosteal abscess, sagging of posterior meatal wall, and reservoir sign. If you have a reservoir sign, do the mastoidectomy and do the treatment. Do a mastoidectomy in spite of a very good antibiotics. And if you have a complications like petrositis and labyrinthitis, do a mastoidectomy. Okay, you can see this is the third one. The below picture is on the temporal bone, where you can see can you see the sinus, the blue color sinus? Okay, and you should take out all the air cells and make a single cavity. That is the idea behind the cortical mastoidectomy. Here it is the operative picture with the all landmarks intact. Okay, so what are the complications of the mastoiditis? Okay, you have various complications like periosteal abscess, labyrinthitis, facial paralysis, petrositis, and extradural subdural abscess, brain parenchymal abscess, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, and otitic hydrocephalus. These are all complications for mastoiditis. And what are the sequelae of mastoiditis? Okay, first one is post-auricular abscess, At the first diagram, can you see if you don't drain the abscess, it will come out through the skin and there is a formation of the fistula. Can you see the postauricular abscess? This is the commonest abscess after the mastoiditis. Okay. If you have a pus under the skin, the pinna displays forward, outwards and downwards. This is very important point. Forwards, outwards and downwards. So this is most common sequelae of mastoiditis. And next one is, this is zygomatic abscess. Can you see the bony, prominence over the zygomatic bone? So zygomatic abscess, this is a infection of the zygomatic air cells situated at the posterior root of zygoma. Okay, swelling appear in front of the pinna, right? And sometimes the ear upper eyelid also edematous. Okay, and you can see there is a case of zygomatic abscess. CT scan, you can see the prominence of the zygoma, and operative picture where you can see pus. And most important one is Bezold's abscess. Okay, he is Dr. Bezold, the scientist, and you can see the swelling below the ear. What do you mean by Bezold abscess? Means the infection, the Coles and mastoiditis, the pus breakdowns in the mastoid cavity, mastoid tip, and the pus it travels along the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Okay, the pus break through and it comes and it forms along the medial side of the it deep to sternocleidomastoid muscle and pushes the muscle outwards. Okay, the pus forms under the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Okay, that is called as Bezold abscess. If the pus forms along with the posterior digastric belly, then it is called as Citylis abscess. So there are two terms. One is Bezold abscess, second one is Citylis abscess. In Bezold's abscess, the pus breakthroughs and it forms forms along the underneath of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and if the pus forms along the underneath of the posterior belly of digastric muscle, that is called as Citylis abscess. Okay, here you can see this is Bezold abscess in this. Okay, see, you can see again a Bezold abscess. Okay, how a Bezold abscess presents the same, and it starts with pain, fever and tender swelling in the neck, and the most important thing is the patient present with torticollis. Okay, right. And the Bezold abscess have a differential diagnosis with infected branchial cyst, suppurative cervical lymphadenopathy, parapharyngeal abscess, parotid tail abscess and internal jugular vein thrombosis. Okay, these are the various abscess they form along for the mastoiditis. The Z is zygomatic abscess, B is Bezold abscess, C is Citylis abscess, PA is postauricular abscess. Okay, these are the various abscess they form along the from the mastoid. So these are various abscess related to mastoid. If the infection goes anteriorly, you have zygomatic abscess, Lux. What is Lux abscess? Lux abscess is meatal abscess. You mean in this case pus break through bony wall between the antrum and external artery canal. Okay, pus it forms between the mastoid antrum and external artery canal, posterior wall, and the swelling is very deep part of the bony meatus. Okay, and sometimes the abscess bursts into external artery canal. That is called as Lux abscess. Lux abscess means it is a meatal abscess. Pus forms between bony wall of antrum and external artery canal. Citylis abscess, the Citylis abscess where you can see it is deep to posterior digastric muscle. Bezold, it is along with the sternocleidomastoid. Postauricular retromastoid abscess and retropharyngeal behind, behind the retropharyngeal. Parapharyngeal means it is in parapharyngeal space. There is a space called as parapharyngeal space. I will explain you later. It is the pus is spreads to parapharyngeal space. So the first diagram is lux abscess, and here you can see the boy presented with, what is this? Is parapharyngeal abscess. In this boy you can see there is a pushing of the tonsil to medially and deviation of uvula, and you can see a bulging in the pharynx, that is parapharyngeal abscess. Okay, this is most important. What is masked mastocytitis? When you can say it is masked mastocytitis, this is very very important. Last time this masked mastocytitis is asked as a essay question. Okay, very surprised, and most of the people they unable to write because they thought it is not a important question. Okay, in masked mastocytitis what happens? There is a slow destruction of the mastoid hair cells without active signs and symptoms. Okay, there won't be any fever, there won't be any pain, there won't be any discharge, and no mastoid swelling. Okay, but if you do mastoidectomy, there is extensive destruction of the hair cells. Okay, all the signs are there, but you don't have any symptom. The etiology is the inadequate antibiotic therapy. For example, if you write for 7 or 10 days antibiotics, if the patient use only for 3 or 4 days. Okay, sometimes oral penicillin group of drugs which you have a early, for example, if you prescribe a oral penicillins, the patient have symptoms relieved by only within 2 days, but there is a persistent infection and it causes destruction of the bone. Okay, symptoms are, if he doesn't have symptoms, he might stop the medicine. Okay, but there is underlying infection. In this case also you can see a mastocytitis, where how he present means he lethargic, not feeling well, and mild pain behind the ear, and there will be a hearing loss, and tympanic membrane is thick and loss of translucency, and there will be a mild mastoid tenderness and conductive hearing loss and clouding of the mastoid hair cells. Okay, these are the clinical features how he present. So you can see clouding of the mastoid hair cells also. Okay, what is the treatment? Again, it is cortical mastoidectomy and full dose of antibiotic therapy. With the full dose of antibiotic therapy. With this I stop here, and in the next class we meet with the new topic. Thank you very much.